How do you do? Mr. Bryan Peters feels it would be a little unkind to present this podcast, gravely amusing, without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold an episode from the mind of Bryan Peters, a fan of pop culture who sought to create a podcast after his own image, without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest podcasts ever listened to. It deals with two great fandoms of pop culture, humor, and horror. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such strain, now's your chance to, well, we warned you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a second episode of Friday the 13th. I've been gone for a little while since Halloween. I've been busy with school and work and changes and stuff. So I want to drop a double episode here and make sure you listen to our first episode of today of the Creature Commandos and our thoughts on the first three episodes here, as I have my buddy Tyler with me. Everybody else is pretty busy with Christmas stuff, and Tyler was able to spare a little bit of time with me. And so thank you, Tyler. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And for this second episode of the day, Tyler, I wanted to talk about horror, because that's what we do here in Gravely Musing. We talk about monsters and horrors and spooky stuff and pop culture and history. But I wanted to kind of have a debate with you, because you and I tend to, well, I mean, we might not debate too much on this, but you and I seem to have a similar way of thinking when it comes to horror movies. And those that have different opinions than us, unfortunately, weren't available for this episode. My cousin Steven, for example, he is taking his mother, my aunt and niece, out for her birthday. So Steve wasn't available. But Tyler, I'm thinking a lot about, horror movies and Christmas time. And I think what rose this debate, or these thoughts in my head more so, is the fact of the dropping of Nosferatu on Christmas Day. And you and I have talked about this a good bit. And just my brother Tyler, what are your thoughts on that, man? Let's get right in the nitty gritty.
So I
Nosferatu, Bill Skarsgård, Christmas.
I totally understand counter programming, and I understand the idea of it, but we've kind of, I don't know if we recorded it or if it was just you and I talking. But putting on Christmas Day is weird because it's complete antithesis of what the day is. And I know some people want to rush to the movies and stuff, and I get that. Like last year, I think, I can't remember if we went Christmas Day evening or the next day, we went and saw Wonka as a family. And there's a charm and a beauty to that film.
Absolutely.
But like, and I'm thinking mass audiences, because yes, there'll be people who will go see Nosferatu Christmas Day and everything, and we plan to go. I think we talked the 26th and go see it.
Yeah, I definitely want to. Yeah, you and I are definitely going to see it.
But it's just like, but some people aren't going to want to go out, Christmas and see that, because it's a complete change of the vibe. If they do go, they're going to want to see probably, I'll tell you what, I bet on Christmas, mark my words, Wicked will have an uptick.
Wicked for sure. I think there might be some double features on Christmas Day. People don't see more than one movie, maybe.
But I don't know if I could see Nosferatu being limited release. on Christmas Day than like a wide release maybe in January. But I just don't think marketing wise it's intelligent. I would have released it in early November if I wasn't going to release it in late September, October, or January. Because I mean, the thing about January is it's either the holdovers that people have already seen or there's nothing. So if you have a movie that's even relatively good, that's why the Underworld films did really well. They kept releasing them always in January, is because they were decent enough movies and there's nothing else to go see. So people would just, okay, let's go. You know, marketing's important. We've talked about this how many times that they destroyed the Haunted Mansion because they released it in July against Mission Impossible. And then you had the Barbenheimer.
I never finished that movie. I fell asleep so many times watching Haunted Mansion.
And if you would have released it in late September, even if the movie sucked, you're going to start to bring in that crowd who's looking for that family-friendly horror element. Since, you know, they put it out on Disney Plus like towards the end of October. And I think that's when we watched it. So it was right in time for Halloween. But, you know, that was during the time where we were seeing like 30-day turnarounds. You could have released it in September and then dropped it on Disney Plus like right at Halloween. And then just recently, it's been what, less than a month? They released Red One, the Christmas film. They released it bombed. I think part of it's because it was supposed to have been out like over a year or so ago. I think the marketing was rough. I don't think anybody wants to see an athletically fit Santa Claus. But they put that in theaters in early November. And it was that came out. And the next week was The Gladiator and Wicked, and then Moana, like a few days later, because Moana came out in the middle of the week. It didn't have traction, and you're releasing a Christmas film way too early. Now, I mean, that's the thing is like, we now live in an age where you release a film, and then about 30 days, you're putting it to like release on streaming or whatever, or digital renting. So your market's kind of changed. But I mean, honestly, looking at the dates real quick, hold on. Let me look here, the calendar.
I'm looking at them right now, buddy.
So if I'm looking at, I dropped Wicked, what, the 22nd, right? Is when it came out.
Oh, I'm on October right now.
Okay.
Just thinking.
So the 22nd was Wicked. The 6th of December, Werewolves came out. Okay. Because I asked you if you wanted to go and we were both too busy to go.
I do.
I mean, I want to go. We got to find time. That would have been the day to drop Red One. Because now you're right in the start of the thick of it. You're not going to release that movie for home viewing. You know, you could drop it in theaters and then on the Christmas day, release it for digital rental. Okay. And then because now with people who've already seen Wicked and all that, now they're in the Christmas spirit, Christmas mind, boom, Christmas movie. Awesome. And there was another Christmas movie that came out that kind of disappeared that no one saw, was The Best Christmas Pageant Ever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I keep forgetting about that movie.
Okay. And we bring this up because today is the 12th of December as we're recording, and they dropped Red One on Prime. So if you have Amazon Prime, it is now free to watch on Prime.
Red One is on there right now?
Yeah.
Oh,
I read the article and I pulled it up and checked, and yeah, it's there. It's free if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber. Less than a month since its theatrical release, because me and the kids wanted to go and we just couldn't find time, and we chose to go see Wicked as a family instead.
You made the better choice.
Yeah, I did. It is now, I can watch it for free on my Amazon Prime. So that means, that tells you, is a movie good, or is the marketing and strategy behind its release what the problem is?
Well, I don't even think they made enough to pay The Rock, did it?
Oh, no. His salary was ridiculous. But, you know, back to the whole counter programming, I don't think it works like it used to anymore. You know, because we don't, that mid-range movies and stuff like that used to come out, we don't do that as much anymore. And I think Hollywood in general should be trying to make sure that they're getting people in theaters, then compete with each other. Like studios should be like, okay, we're not going to compete with each other. We're going to space stuff out so that every weekend people are going back to the theaters and we're building traction. Because we've had this discussion about upcoming July of 2025 and what that looks like. So, but back to Nosferatu.
Like, I mean, this is a movie, the original Nosferatu in the 1920s, which we'll talk more about it in a few weeks. I mean, just seeing Max Schreck in a silent movie and just the images of, I forget what the actor's name is, but him opening his chamber door and we see Max Schreck in the hallway, just in the darkness. There's no sound. And all we see is just him staring at him, just like, with with his hands like that. Absolutely terrifying. And in later years, we would see Klaus Kinski play this character, of Shrek and
No, Orlok.
And Orlok. Yeah, thank you. So I know that Bill is going to nail it, and I'm intrigued of Willem Dafoe's presence in it, and I love Dracula, and you love Dracula, and it couldn't be called Dracula because the rights at the time, so that he's called Nosferatu, which is is an equally awesome name, but I feel, Tyler, that if we throw in too many horror movies around Christmas time, that we're taking away the joy of the season.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking away the positivity of the season.
Brian's muted.
And it's just so talking with my cousin Steven, he's like, and he's trying to get me to watch the Terrifier movies. And when I asked him, and he's like, yeah, gotta watch Terrifier 3. He's dressed as Santa. It's a perfect Christmas movie. My cousin Steve is a very different kind of guy, and I asked him, hold on one second. I asked him, what are your top 3 horror movies for Christmas? Your top 3. And he said number 3 was Krampus. Number 2, Jack Frost, the horror version, of course. And number 1, Terrifier 3. And I started just really thinking about Terrifier 3, just having really, really thinking about just Christmas and horror, and of course Nosferatu, as we just said. Just really thinking about Christmas and horror. So I decided to go back these couple weeks, and more so this week, and watch some Christmas horror movies that I missed. And the first one, because I always go chronologically, because that's who I am. The first one that everybody was like, "Oh, you gotta see this movie! Like, this is the Christmas horror movie," is Black Christmas in 1974, and I'll talk more about it in depth probably eventually when we start talking about the birth of slashers, and well, Psycho will be the birth of slashers in a few months, but Black Christmas, it was a 1974 movie, and I think you watched it for the first time this week. I watched it for the first time this week. I had never got to watch it, mostly because my wife doesn't really watch these movies with me. She watches Scream with me because of the murder mystery aspect. So that intrigues her. And she'll watch Halloween with me because, it's like classic. My wife's very pick and choose. But 1974's Black Christmas influenced Halloween. You can see some influence of it for Nightmare on Elm Street. You can definitely see it for Scream. And you can definitely see it for When a Stranger Calls. It was better than I thought it was going to be, Tyler. Like, I really thought that this movie was going to be very overrated and just trash. and this movie was directed by Bob Clark. And what else did Bob Clark direct there, Tyler?
Didn't he direct A Christmas Story?
He did direct A Christmas Story, as my mom calls it, Shoot Your Eye Out. One of the most beloved Christmas movies of all time. Ralphie with his BB gun, good old A Christmas Story. It was directed by Bob Clark, and Margot Kidder's in it. This is just 4 years before she takes the role of Lois Lane, and the movie was mostly Canadian, and it was filmed for $686,000, and it made about $4 million worldwide. And this movie's very interesting, and I want to get your. Well, I'm just going to go through the premise of it, and then I want to get your thoughts, Tyler, and then I'll give my thoughts. So the basic premise of this movie, okay, spoilers coming about. I won't give everything away, but the basic premise of this movie is that there are a bunch of girls in a sort of sorority house. They all live together, and they have a sorority mother who is pretty much a raising alcoholic. And it's Christmas time, and the girls have different situations going on. I won't reveal everything. And they started getting obscene phone calls from a caller that we'll just call the Moaner. And these calls have very kind of explicit sayings in it. But some of the stuff that the caller says is it talks about someone named Agnes, someone named Billy. This harasser is kind of codenamed Billy, and it does various voices, possible split personality situation going on. We're not sure. And this caller actually breaks into the home and hangs out in the attic and kills sorority girls one by one. And the rest of the movie is this mystery of who really is this person. Has this person left the attic? Has this person, is it a man? Is it a woman? Who is it? And the way that the movie ends is very interesting, which we'll talk about in a second. So, Tyler, I really want your thoughts on this movie as a fan of psychological slashers and just movies in general. I want to hear what you have to think. What you think there, buddy?
I've heard over and over that you got to see Black Christmas, and I always thought it was something like, what's the title has to do with the film? I think it's a very oddly titled film, and we'll deconstruct some things later because I don't want to say anything too late till we get to our bigger topic here. But sure. I thought it was good. I mean, it has that. We've talked about. I'm not a huge fan of film in the 70s, except for like the blockbuster, like the franchises and the directors that would basically become the 80s. Spielberg, Donner, Lucas with Star Wars and everything. They all started in the 70s, but like their biggest stuff was as it goes into the 80s and beyond. So, but you see how this movie lays the groundwork for so many of other things that come. And I think one thing about it that works so well is just the time it was created, because like the whole calls, with our technology and stuff now, it doesn't quite work as well. Because like, the big reveal is the calls are coming from in the house. There's the dropped line about there's a second phone line in the one room, and then how they have to trace the calls and how it takes so long and the way it goes. Like, it's just, if you don't have the prior knowledge of how things were, watching it now, you're just kind of like, what? This tension is okay.
Just like the movie Home Alone wouldn't work today.
Yeah, me and Sayla had a nice conversation about certain things about that, because the cell phone has ruined so many things. But I don't know. I don't want to say it's overrated, but part of it, like, and I guess we can talk about as we get to the end, is I'm like, it's interesting, but at the same time, I
Yeah,
feel
we
like
can talk about the end. Spoilers.
yeah, for a movie released in the 70s, I don't know. In a way, I feel anticlimactic. In another way, I feel like, what's the resolution? What are they actually trying to say with the film? Was there really a big cathartic release? Yeah, let's just talk about the end. You go first.
Yeah, I like the end. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but the whole entire time, they're, we watch these kind of mystery movies so many times, and you know, and it's interesting watching the stuff that's influenced this movie. Before we watch this movie that influenced that stuff, because in Scream, you kind of is the modern day Black Christmas for the interpretation of pay attention to the boyfriend. It might be the boyfriend. The boyfriend's a killer, and this movie sells. It wants to drive into your head that it could be this boyfriend Peter the whole time, and Peter's upset about situations, and he's not all mentally stable. So when we get to the end, and the one girl, I don't know, I can't forget I forget her name. Jess maybe was her name, but her
Yes.
seeing, okay, it was Jess. Okay, and Jess is in the basement, and she's hiding from the killer. And then Peter is on the outside all of a sudden, and she thinks that Peter is the killer the whole time. And then the police arrive, and then, like, it cuts away, and then police arrive, and then you see her and Peter dead in the corner of the basement, and it's obvious that she killed Peter thinking he was the killer. And then the movie, kind of ends, and it kind of goes to the cops, like, dealing with the crime scene and all that. And then the final scenes of it are zooming out and going to the attic, and you find out that the killer is still in the attic, and the killer wasn't Peter. And the whole time that they're drilling the thought of Peter being the killer, I keep saying to myself, like, man, like, if it really ends up being Peter being a killer, like, it's just so stupid. And I found myself kind of rewinding some scenes, and, like, okay, where was Peter when the phone rang? And Peter wasn't there a good bit of times. And then there was, like, some dude. There was some dude that, like, had a beard, was one of the boyfriends, and was mad about, like, someone not being there to go skiing or something. And then we don't really see that guy. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's that guy. But, like, the fact that the killer is no character that you see, at least you think it's not, and it's just some dude in the attic. We don't know why he's there. And some description of the movie, it said, like, it was his childhood home. Like, it was somebody's childhood home.
But see, that's like in the 2006 version.
Oh, that's the 2006 version. Okay, because I never saw that one. So I guess the 2006 version
that one,
is trying to explain these things.
Yeah, but the 2006 one's like darker. I watched it, and honestly, I watched it because it was the only one that was available last year or 2 years ago on Tubi, and it was darker and creepier and disgusting in some ways. But it just, once again, like, I don't know. It just, I'd watch it again with you and dissect it, but, like, it's just, it wasn't one like, oh, I'm gonna watch this again.
Like, okay, I don't think I'll ever watch this movie again. It's just not good. It's just not good enough. But I am intrigued. Like, well, I guess I'm not intrigued anymore, but I appreciate the fact that this movie ends with you not knowing who the killer was, what the killer's purpose was, what the motive is, what the deal is, and the fact that the killer is still there. Like, I appreciated that. And that was a pleasant surprise, because how many times do we see these horror movies where the killer is just overly obvious? I mean, I predicted, what was it? We saw Scream 5. I predicted the killers right away to you. I was like,
yeah, you did. And And it wasn't like I didn't believe you. I was just like, no, that's too obvious. Like, there's no
It
way.
was
That's
way
too.
obvious.
And I was like,
Yep.
and then when it was revealed, I was like, dang it. Like, I was waiting for more twists and more like
how did this guy never see the stab movies? Get out of here. He's
like
watching them on Netflix all day.
okay. So I guess my big thing was when you were like talking about the end, I never thought the what's his face boyfriend was the killer. I never felt like that was even a legit thing because I'm like,
good. Because you're smart.
because I'm just like watching it. And I'm like, he doesn't really turn until after the first murders happened. And then why would he be killing everyone in the house? They don't give us any. I'm like, if it's supposed to be a mystery, they don't give us enough of any of the characters for me to really feel like we're supposed to be figuring out or it's going to be somebody. And the fact that like we just see this camera shot that we have someone climbing the attic and everything.
Yeah, Halloween totally ripped off that opening scene, like almost scene for scene, moment for moment, almost.
It's definitely a nice feel. But then, so I guess, and so the fact that like the dude is in the attic, okay, and everyone who knows that it's the attic is either dead or unconscious. So, because when the police show up at the end, homeboy comes in the basement where she's at, and that's when the police find her is in the basement. And you're telling me they don't search the whole house when this attic is a very large space that's easy to get up to? So
And there's a
nobody,
ladder, and the ladder is visible.
yeah. So no one thought to go up there like at all throughout the whole thing and search upstairs. These cops suck. So they find her in the basement, and like you said, she killed her boyfriend thinking he was the killer, and then she's asleep. As it pans out, and as much as like the phone calls, like start again or whatever, I almost would have preferred if it was something like as the camera goes out, we just see a figure climbing out the window. But like as the camera pans out, the one girl in the rocking chair is in the window in the attic, and the attic is obviously big enough that it has its own window. So if I'm going in as a cop, like that's space that of a home. It's not like it's a hidden window or a hidden passage or like a crawl space that you might miss. Like it's pretty blatantly obvious that there is space up there. So that kind of
And you can see it in the freaking window.
so
Like
that
you
always
see
kind of
something's
just
up there.
yeah. So that kind of just was like, okay. And the fact that it's a random person just doing that kind of gives me like the Stranger vibes, like why that the original Stranger films, like I refuse to watch the new ones because they look like garbage. The whole point was to just like, the line was like, why are you doing this? Because you're home. So I never really bought into that it was supposed to be the boyfriend. I kind of just feel like it was just her paranoia with everything else that was compounding on top of it, of him. And he was just too stupid because he didn't really know what was going on. Because they all talk about the girl who was murdered in the park.
Yes, I had a big problem with that.
And I'm like, was that just a happenstance that happened? Or did the killer guy get out of the attic, go kill someone else, and then call it back in? Or did that just happen to happen? And
I thought it was like he killed in the park and before he got to the house.
Okay, see, that makes sense. And that's why I think just it's easy. Okay, spoiler for another movie. Okay,
go for it.
Why I don't like The Usual Suspects is it's easy to trick people.
I never saw it.
Well, you know the twist at the end, right?
I don't.
Oh, dang it, Brian. All I'm going to say, I won't reveal anything. It's easy to make a twist and surprise people when everything you've told them the entire movie is a lie.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
If you never know what's real, there's no skill in surprising people when. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that since you haven't seen it.
Why don't you talk Fight Club? Twisted Fight Club.
Well, Twisted Fight Club's brilliant.
I know, but that whole movie, you think that there's another person.
No, you don't. If you're paying attention, you don't. Because it's seeded throughout the whole movie. with the way that they interact with other people, with the way that when Tyler does something, things don't react. If you catch the blip, they blip burn him 2 times before he actually appears when the character's having trouble sleeping. So if you're looking for clues, like anytime I watch a movie, I'm watching the characters interact with each other. And I'll point out like this character's not interacting. Like a recent season of a famous show had this character that was around, and I was like, they're never in scenes with any other characters but this one. And I'm watching the way they interact with people and things.
There was something recently we watched where we're like, I don't think that person's real. There was something recently we watched.
I just can't remember what we watched together. So
where we made this comment, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think that person's really there. Gosh. And then they end up actually being there. What the heck was it?
I don't know. We watch a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we do. Well, yeah. I don't know. But yeah, so Black Christmas, it's okay, but it's not in my top 3 in terms of like, Christmas horror. So, but it started this idea, if you will, that okay, we're going to have a movie come out on Christmas, and we're going to have it be a slasher movie around Christmas time, and have murder and whatever during Christmas time. And I think that type of those type of movies kind of during Christmas time, like if you want to do a slasher movie during Christmas time, have at it, whatever. But there's one thing that I don't think should go into the Christmas horror section. And this is becoming more popular than ever right now. And Terrifier, exploited that. Terrifier 3 exploited that with having your serial killer dress up like Santa Claus. And like I watched some of these old movies, Tyler, and we're going to talk about briefly here about a movie called Christmas Evil that came out in 1980, and Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is kind of more popular, came out in 1984. And these movies, and I didn't watch Santa Sleigh yet. Santa Sleigh is on my list. I'll watch it because I know it's more than ridiculous, and that came out like 2005. And I'm going to watch The Mean One because The Mean One stars David Howard Thornton, and who did the Art the Clown. I will watch it eventually, but like, I think that I just feel like Santa Claus kind of needs to be off limits. I mean, I know nothing's sacred nowadays,
and that's the point.
That is the point, for real.
Nothing's sacred. It's all about subverting expectations any way possible. It's about corrupting pure good imagery and making everything that you're just trying to make things like, oh, let's take what's good and destroy it without being anything good to it. So the idea of taking this and making Christmas evil and let's corrupt something that's supposed to be good, beautiful, and pure, it's like a cash grab. It's just people who hate the holidays or don't like it and just want to make something negative. I mean, like you mentioned the one with Bill Goldberg, like there's all kinds of these cheap ones, like A Christmas Horror Story. And those are the movies that are just like the direct to video, direct to streaming, where I almost don't consider them in the category because Christmas, Bloody Christmas, because they are just like the cheap crash grab knockoffs that are like just scooping the bottom of the barrel to try to make a statement. They didn't even release in theaters or anything. So
it's just, I don't know, like just watching these movies with Santa being kind of like a serial killer, it made me very uncomfortable. And I know it's just a movie, but it's just, like it made me ask the question, like, so within 20 years, let's just throw within 20 years, are we going to get a movie that has Jesus Christ himself out there being a serial killer?
I don't even think it would be 20 years. I think there probably already is something like that because nobody respects anything. Like you can
No.
get away with whatever. There's no like, oh, it's because it goes back to the same thing of just like respecting people in general and, having faith like, oh, well, we all have freedom of speech. I can say and do whatever I want. It doesn't matter if it offends you. This is about me. And I think, the point is, I mean, in this, it's not Santa like himself. It's a person dressed as Santa. So there's a little bit difference there.
That's fair. That's fair.
But the idea is you're corrupting what should be a good image. And I think the older that we get though, if I was like 15, 20, when you're like just a douche,
I'll always be.
there's ways of looking at things, but then the older you get, you realize how cynical the world is and how void of hope and how void of joy and the world that, I'm now raising my children in and stuff. Like I want something for them to latch onto that's good. I mean, even that's why so many people hated the more recent Velma TV series is because for no reason they're taking the Scooby characters and making them not the characters that we know and love and making them horrible trash versions. And it's like, why even do that why not just create something that is Scooby-Doo referenced and like, because Scooby-Doo's not even in it, first of all. And you could just change the names of these characters and a little bit of the way they look. And you have a whole different show that you could sell compared to just trying to drag a known property down. And I think some of this that's what it is with this Christmas horror is you're just trying to make horror and like it's supposed to be like a juxtaposition of what should be this beautiful happy time into something horrible. And I can get the appeal of selling that story, but there's different layers to it. So
like okay, so the story in Christmas Evil, have you ever seen this movie?
no, like
okay.
And we'll get more into as we keep going, but yeah, there's a line.
Like I think that there's a good movie here. I think that there's a good let me reiterate. I think there's a good story here that could be here. But this was 1980. Budget was low. It was done for $850,000. And it could have been, this was just this was right around Friday the 13th just came out, like a few months before. This movie was released November 7th, 1980, in Pittsburgh. Yeah, Pittsburgh. And so it was so it probably was made in just very short time to be released later that year, and kind of trying to take Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th is definitely a huge influence on Silent Night, Deadly Night, which we'll talk about in a second. But so in this movie, Christmas Evil, it starts with Christmas Eve in 1947, where a young boy named Harry Stadling goes down the stairs with his brother, and he sees his father dressed as Santa Claus sexually groping his mother, who's standing there in a robe with like knee-high stockings, and like he's on his knees like filling up her leg, and all the like and all the when I went to watch the movie, that scene with him like on his knees and cover filling up the leg like it's a leg lamp from a Christmas Story. Oh, wait a second. No, never mind. This wasn't made by Bob Clark. That was the other movie. so it's like the background image for the movie with the description, which is very disturbing. But anywho, he sees this and he's like traumatized that Santa's naughty and Santa's messing with his mom. And it drills in his head. So that was kind of weird. Like that whole presentation is weird. But it instills in Harry as we jump 33 years. So Harry's like 40 at this time. And Harry has this image in his head of what Santa should be, of goodness and niceness and purity, and we take care of kids and we are good to children and we're good to people and what Christmas spirit's supposed to be, and and what what it should be. And he works at a toy factory, and he's like a kind of like a I don't know, he's kind of like a factory supervisor a little bit. Mm-hmm. And he cares about how the toys are made. He doesn't want them to be cheap. He doesn't want them to fall apart on the kids. And he really cares about that. But then we get this creepier side. And in 1980, I guess no one really would have thought a whole lot about this. But he spies on the neighborhood children with binoculars, watching if they're good or bad. So he keeps books just like Santa Claus of who's good and who's naughty. So he's like spying on a family with binoculars, and sometimes he's just standing outside their window watching them. Very creepy, very unsettling. And he's like, okay, so there's Susie, and she's being nice to her mother. And okay, Susie's a good girl. And then here's this kid, this kid named Moss Garcia. And Moss Garcia is looking at Penthouse in his room. So he's a naughty boy. And he keeps track of all this. And he gets taken advantage of at work because he's like so nice. And one of the main things that makes him snap is he's at a Christmas party and his boss announces that the company is going to donate toys to children of a local hospital, provided that production to make these toys increases significantly, and that the employees contribute their own money to donate these toys and donations. So basically, we'll make more toys, we'll donate those extra toys to the hospital. We don't know how many kids are in that hospital. We don't know what toys the kids want. And so that'll increase our productivity. And then to pay for so we don't lose any profits, we'll take it out of the employees' pay or whatever contributions the employees make. So we don't lose any profits. We increase productivity and we can sell whatever's left over to increase production. So Harry's really pissed about this. Like he goes to the boss and is like, and the guy that came up with the idea, and he's like, so how many kids are there? Like, do you know the kids' names? You know what toys they like? You know what's going on with them? And the guy's like, we don't have any freaking clue. Like we're just, it's all about image. So Harry just kind of flips out about that. And he steals toys from the factory. He dresses up like Santa Claus. He donates the toys to the kids. And then he goes around town, like to all the people that are treating him bad. He goes around town and he punishes all these people that are naughty and kills them, basically. And I think that there is an interesting movie in here of a man that's like, this
falling
is
apart.
Like falling, yeah. Like
he's lost his faith in a sense. Like he's lost his moral code. And just you describing the story sounds interesting. I think
it is an interesting movie. I recommend at least watching it once.
I'm just sitting here like if I were to take this and do this, like I think this is one that you could remake and make more of a psychological horror. And I think I think if you were to change it to where he plays Santa and he's trying to be good, and then when he snaps, he starts to like ditch the Santa Claus imagery and maybe takes up something of more of like, I don't want to say Krampus, but like something in that vein of like more of like a Punisher, like a even a Belschnickel type thing, or something where he drops the Santa Claus aspect, as if he's like saying Santa is dead because Santa represents good and joy. It's time for you to be punished. Would be different than, carrying on the punishment as Santa. Because I think that once again is corrupting that image. And that's kind of why like I'm not a fan of where they're doing like all these dark fairy tales now, like Winnie the Pooh and all that, these cheap horror films. I'm like, something has to stay good and pure in this world. We need something.
Which is the whole point of what this discussion really is. Like,
and that's, and there's just, and I don't want to, it all comes back to Superman, but it's kind of like the whole, like the idea of like an evil Superman. Well, the evil Superman story works if you're trying to say what would happen, what would it take to corrupt Clark Kent, Superman, because who he is the pinnacle of the character. But just doing like a version of an evil Superman, like we've talked about, like the Homelander or the Brightburn or even the Earth 3 alternate version, is like, oh, well, what if someone was evil with Superman's powers is one story, but the idea of what would it take to corrupt Clark Kent, it should be scary. Because if he's the pinnacle of good and justice and love and hope, and then all of a sudden he's evil and bad, there's really nothing hopeful for any of us, right? So, corrupting, and I think it comes from people who are cynical about life and what it is like, well, nothing's good, nothing can stay good. There isn't anything, so we're just gonna have a laugh. And it's like that's what the comedian represented in Watchmen, was it's all a joke. Everything we hold dear, morality, everything is all one giant joke. So that's what really kind of what we're asking here. But I think Christmas Evil, on the surface of describing it, could be an interesting film if you were to approach it differently. But if you're just going to make it like this is the story and it's like, and we're turning it into a slasher, well, that's because that's the story you want to tell, is the slasher. And this is your vehicle to get to the slasher.
Right. And I think the better movie here is like just someone just sick of the image of goodness and hope being taken away, and people not caring about, like, because a very interesting scene in this movie is where he's being chased in a neighborhood by parents and villagers, because the news is saying like, look for a Santa that looks like this, and he's being chased, and one of the parents like tries to get at him with a knife, and a child steps in the way and says, no, you're not going to hurt Santa. Like, Santa's good. Santa protects us. And this Santa's not good because he's killing people. And like the parent and like having that child stand in the way of Santa and their own parent, their own father, like, it was a very interesting concept. So there's so to have the idea in this movie of a man that's like, take the killing out and make it just be about like, you're evil, you're corrupt, and like, we need to enter hope more into the world, hope back into the world, the symbol of good. And I will be Santa Claus to try to show you that symbol and try to bring you back from the darkness to be better. I think there's some potential here, but the tradition of Santa now being evil goes into our next movie, which is Silent Night, Deadly Night. And Silent Night, Deadly Night has a similar type premise and similar type idea here about post-traumatic stress disorder as a child. This movie is an absolute kind of ripoff of Friday the 13th in a lot of aspects. So, and a good bit of episodes. So, in this movie, the main character is named Billy, and Billy is 5 years old, and he goes and visits his grandpa with his mom and dad and his little sibling. I think it's like a little brother, and their grandpa's in a nut house, and he doesn't speak. And the parents go and talk with the doctors and leave Billy, 5-year-old Billy, with his grandpa, and it was in a mental institution. And the grandpa like just turns to Billy after being in a catatonic state and just goes, Santa will come tonight. And you know what Santa does? And Billy's like, he brings presents, Grandpa. And Grandpa's like, no, Santa punishes the naughty. And he only brings presents to kids that are good the whole year. Have you been naughty at all this year? Yep, Grandpa, I've been a little bad here and there. Well, then you'll get no presents, and Santa's gonna punish you. And then goes back to catatonic state when the parents come back. So Billy's traumatized of Santa coming after him because he's been a little bad. And while the parents are driving, the dad swears, and Billy's like, Daddy, you can't talk like that. And Grandpa did say that Santa's coming for us if we're bad. And in the meantime of this whole thing is a dude dressed up like Santa robs a convenience store and kills the clerk, shoots him a couple times over like $30 in the cash register. And then he pulls over the side of the road like he has car trouble. And then they pull over to help him because it's Santa. And Billy's like, no, don't stop. Keep going. Santa's evil now. And they stop and help him. And he shoots the dad. And then he tries to rape Billy's mom. And he rips her shirt and everything and tries to rape her right there and puts a knife to her throat. And then she kicks him, slits the mom's throat. And Billy sees the whole thing. It's very uncomfortable. And then Billy goes to an orphanage where he's raised by a Mother Superior. And Mother Superior beats him with a belt anytime he does something that against what she says, or he's naughty during Christmas time. So anytime they bring Santa to their orphanage, he gets the PTSD, and the Superior beats him with a belt because he's acting up because of the stress. So when he's 18, another nun who's nice gets him a job in a toy store, and the toy store, their Santa ends up quitting. So they make Billy the Santa of the store, and all this PTSD comes back, and Billy flips and decides to basically run around town, and every single person that's having sex during that time, he just decides to kill them because they're naughty. And that's kind of the movie. And they like shoot him dead at the end. Watching these two movies like made me very uncomfortable. I will never probably watch these movies again. And like I didn't like this, Tyler. Like, I didn't like these movies. I didn't like this idea of taking away the goodness of Santa Claus and taking away the hope of Santa Claus, and Santa Claus just being a killer of people. And I think the only movie where it works of Santa like killing people is Violent Night with David Harbour. Because in Violent Night with David Harbour, like, he's protecting the kid. He's protecting the family.
He's still Santa. Like, I was talking with a friend of mine at work today, and we were talking about this film. And I said, I was describing with at the core, he's still Santa. He's still the character. He's still a good person. And you find, like, if you watch the evolution of the events of, he's trying not to kill, he's trying not to fight. The first 2 kills are kind of accidental, but then like she has a conversation about the naughty, and he looks at the list. He's like, you are being naughty. This is naughty. Like, and he's already struggling with his identity as Santa earlier about, is he doing anything? Is he making a difference? Do people even care? Is Christmas spirit good? So they reveal enough in that film about his past of who he was that makes you intrigued to find out more about how this person became Santa Claus and what the lore is for this movie version of who Santa is. And I think it's a tough juxtaposition, but it works beautifully in that film because
that movie's wonderful.
You play Santa real, you play it straight. of him really being Santa with an edge, and it works. He's not evil. He's not corrupt, and that's more of like it's more of an action movie with Santa.
Yeah, and I mean it's Die Hard meets Home Alone, meets Santa Claus. That, like, I'm okay with that because it's still Santa Claus being good. It's still keeping that image of good, like you said, and I'm for that. But like Santa Claus being evil and killing people, like, I just kind of don't want it. And and will I watch Terrifier 3 eventually? Yeah, maybe.
But it's not like he's Santa for the
but, like,
entire movie. Like it's
yeah,
like a scene or something, isn't it? I don't know.
I think he. I mean,
I don't know.
we'll
don't
get
know.
to it eventually as we attempt to watch those movies. We said we would attempt to try to watch those movies, but I watched the opening scene of Terrifier 3. Steve was like, "Oh, you gotta watch the opening scene of Terrifier 3 because it's based on real events. It's based on a real story." And in that opening scene, he basically is dressed like Santa Claus, goes in the house, kills the whole family, eats the Christmas cookies with blood all over his hands, and washes the dishes and leaves. and as based on an actual event, something that really happened. And it's just I just don't think I want, me personally, listeners, whatever you like, it's up to that's your thing. I just kind of like, I just think I'm at the age where I just kind of want the purity and the goodness of Santa kind of kept the way it is. So Tyler, there is many different Christmas horror movies, ranging from the serial killers like we talked about to like Jack Frost as another serial killer as a snowman, which I just watched that movie for the first time. That movie was wild and kind of disturbing. To the fun spooky Christmas movies. So I assume that our top 3 Christmas horror movies will be similar.
I don't know,
but we'll see. And I just want to hear. I want to hear what your top 3 are. So, listeners, these are what we feel are the best Christmas horror movies. Just us personally, whatever you may like, you might like. If you like Terrifier 3, like my cousin Steven, that is what he put as his number 1. But I think ours will be a little different. So, Tyler, I'd love to hear your top 3 here, buddy.
All right. I will give you my top 3, but let me go on a little rant here for a second.
You can.
What classifies a Christmas horror film or even a Christmas movie, period? Because people argue Die Hard's a Christmas movie. Okay. Now, where is the line between having a movie set at Christmas or being a Christmas movie?
I think the rules are, at least the rules for me are, there has to be at least one scene in this movie that takes place on Christmas Day or at Christmas time. We have to see a Christmas tree. We have to see kind of Christmas lights and some type. It has to be during wintertime. There has to be a Christmas type scene. And there has to be something in that movie that's about family and some type of redemption arc for a character, and or realizing something about family, kind of that Christmas spirit and realization of hope and family.
Because I mean, we have these, like, you have, like I said, people argue Die Hard and Die Hard 2, are Christmas movies.
They are. It's about a man trying to get his family back. And it takes place on Christmas.
You have Batman Returns.
Batman Returns. This is a whole nother podcast, but
I know, but I want to establish this because we don't have to break it down, we don't have to break it down right now.
Sure.
But I'm throwing these out, like Iron Man 3, because we all know that Shane Black loves 7 things at Christmas. Okay.
He sure
Lethal
does.
Weapon.
Lethal Weapon. Yep.
Okay. And I say that there's a difference between being a Christmas movie and setting something at Christmas, because you could eject the Christmas element from Lethal Weapon and still have the exact same movie.
Yes.
And I'm going to use this same logic as we go into this next part, because Black Christmas, you could eject the Christmas element and still have the exact same movie. The holiday does not play anything into the film itself. It's just there kind of as a marketing ploy and to provide that juxtaposition of.
Okay. So Shazam, the first Shazam,
Christmas movie,
does take place during Christmas. The big fight at the end is at Christmas. Well, not necessarily maybe Christmas Day, but at a Christmas type play thing. And the whole movie's about family.
Yeah. We watch it every year at Christmas time. I mean, and it has Christmas music in it. It opens on Christmas.
That's another factor.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
but I don't know if I would put. I don't know if I would put Lethal Weapon. It's been a long time since I've seen Lethal Weapon. I don't know if I would put that as a full blown Christmas movie. Die Hard, I sure would, because there is Christmas music. It does take place on Christmas. The whole point of the movie is him trying to, keep his family together and get him back, and him realizing how much he does need his wife and her, how they still love each other. So yeah, I put it as that.
That's my biggest thing is, does it have is the Christmas elements enhancing the film, and you can't really do the film without them? Does the story change without the Christmas elements to make it a Christmas movie? And that's why there's the difference between being set at Christmas,
sure,
and being a Christmas movie.
So to answer your Batman Returns question, though,
okay,
Batman Returns, I think you can say is a Christmas movie, because Penguin's trying to find his family, trying to find out who he is a little bit. It starts with a Christmas, shopping with Alfred, and it starts with Christmas time with the big presents and the big Christmas tree. It's like the whole thing is during Christmas time, the whole dang movie. But I think what really gives it that oomph is at the end, where he takes off his mask and he's like, we could be together, Selena. We could be together. We could have a family. We're the same. We could throw this all away and be together. And I think, that's a bit Christmassy, in terms of, wanting to, be together and kind of like having a hope and stuff. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
But
so, I mean,
so much Christmas stuff happens in that movie. So,
I'm looking, there's like 5 Silent Night, Deadly Nights. There's like a bunch of direct videos, so I will say Christmas Evil is definitely a Christmas horror movie because it has all the elements for a Christmas film. I mean, then you have like Christmas comedies we didn't even touch on, like, the third Harold and Kumar movie is a Christmas movie. Things you don't think about.
Well, we're talking horror. We're just talking horror, though.
But I'm just saying, like, what makes a Christmas movie? Because, to translate, into things, I'm kind of interested in your top 3 first before mine, because I think mine are going to throw you for the most part, because I feel like to be a Christmas horror film, okay, you have to have elements of the holiday and what the holiday is. That's why I think Black Christmas doesn't work for me, because if I just take out the holiday, it's still the same movie. You're just using the element. You put Christmas in the title to sell it, and it doesn't work like with Halloween. It still works because Halloween's all about dressing up and wearing masks, but in Christmas, Black Christmas, like I said, you change the title to When a Stranger Calls. Okay. And you just take out the Christmas tree. It could be spring break. It could be a weekend. It could be anything. The holiday does not play into the events of the film. So, all right, I'll give you mine, and I'll tell you.
I'll give you
them.
mine. I'll give you mine first.
All right, you go first, and then I'll go.
Yeah, I'll go.
I bet you're going to be like, "What the hell is Tyler thinking?"
No, probably not. Okay, so my number 3. it can be argued of how much horror is in this movie, but I think it hits. I think it hits elements of kind of horror. I use this movie as a good segue between Halloween and Christmas, and it's Nightmare Before Christmas.
Boom! There's our first similarity. That's my number 2.
That's my number 3.
That's my number 2.
It hits everything. I mean, the movie's timeless. You know, I watch this movie on November 1st every year because of that line the Wolfman says, where the mayor's like, oh, there's 365 days till Christmas. 364.
I mean, the movie starts as Halloween is ending and they're returning, so it would be November 1st. That movie usually starts playing in our house October 1st through like January 1st. It's kind of in and out of everything. So
it's just a wonderful movie about. Oh well, I mean, I did like at least 2 podcasts last year on this movie because of the anniversary. But mostly everybody's seen the movie. Just the story of Jack and the horror elements with Christmas and bringing the horror, the Halloween elements to Christmas and being scary and having all that spooky stuff, but still being very hopeful. Santa's in it, all that stuff. It's my number 3 and I love it. My number 2, I now am pretty confident that you and I have the same top 3. I'm pretty confident right now.
Okay.
But now that your number, well, that was your number 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now that I bet you we have the same list. So my number 2 is Krampus, from 2015. I remember seeing that with my wife and just laughing so much and just loving it and loving the message of it. And Krampus looked so great. It kind of started that whole trend with Krampus and that knowledge of, hey, there's like a scary Santa. The message is good. The family stuff, the acting is great. The dialogue is great. Great movie. My number 1 Christmas horror movie is Gremlins. And that movie gets slept on so much. I think a lot of people forget it takes place in Christmas. I think nowadays a lot of people are forgetting about the movie, period. But the story of, a struggling adventurer named Randall going to Chinatown, not having a lot of money, trying to get a present for his son, Billy, trying to get a good deal because he's poor. And he gets this Mogwai, Gizmo, and giving it to Billy, and just everything kind of exploding on Christmas Eve. And it all started with just trying to do something good to try to get his son something nice, and just trying to tie it all together, and all this stuff going to mess. It is symbolic of the stresses of Christmas almost, and just how everything can go chaotic. I am definitely, you know what, man? When we have our kind of Christmas party or whatever together, I almost want to watch Gremlins with you if you're down for that.
I haven't watched it in a while. Like, I think the kids can watch it. I think they might get a kick out of it.
Maybe,
I haven't watched
maybe. I don't know. I just love watching movies with you. So
I just need to come over to your house before it's January 1st and watch Gremlins, and we'll watch Silent Night together. We'll do an action one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
my dang house. So anyway, go ahead.
I will. Okay. So mine is in the same vein, but I'm going to throw you a loop on one. Because I would put Gremlins at my number 4.
Okay.
Because I haven't seen it in a long time. And I'm going to pick one that I watched a few years ago when I was doing some research. This is my number 3. And I think because it's labeled online as a dark comedy, teen horror, comedy horror thriller. And I'm going to do 2016's Better Watch Out.
Oh.
Because I think it's one that's kind of forgotten. It was a lower kind of but it has some twists and turns, and I think operates on and it has like the holiday thing going on, but I think it's one that's just kind of forgotten. And I would say don't watch the trailer because I feel like the trailer gives too much away. But it was streaming. It is streaming on Peacock and Roku and Tubi for free, it looks like. But that's going to be my number 3 because I remember being surprised by that movie.
I have not seen that movie.
And that's why I was like, I'm going to throw you for a loop on this one.
Good.
Because I feel like it, but my number 2 is Nightmare Before Christmas and my number 1 is Krampus. And I do like Krampus a lot. It's not a perfect movie. I feel like James and I are going to dissect it a little bit more here soon. I feel like there's a point where it kind of loses something, but then it kind of tries to come back at the end.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
But the reason why I choose it is because Christmas has a lot of lore to it. Christmas is a holiday that has a lot of different holidays that are funneled into it. There's a lot of mythology. There's a lot of lore behind it. And that often gets overlooked. So Krampus is just as valid as Santa Claus and anything else because it has a deep rooted in the holiday itself. And that's why I choose it, because it's actually a horror based film that of quality, because quality is also one too. That we talked about that, about stuff
Quality,
that's direct to video,
quality
and
is
just kind of
important.
cheap cash grab type stuff, low budget garbage. But they're actually pulling from the roots of the holiday and the holiday's mythology. And to me, that's what makes any holiday horror film. And if anyone's interested, James Cole, my co-host from the Krypton Report, we do a monthly podcast called The Horror Report, and it's on our Patreon. It's $1 a month for our Patreon. We do other shows on there too. And for the first season, every month we are doing one that's based on a holiday of that month, a horror film we're dissecting about the holiday. And Krampus is my number 1 because, like I said, it reflects the holiday. It brings in the holiday compared to just being like, oh, we're going to corrupt Santa Claus and make Santa Claus evil, or we're going to do, a serial killer in a film. But like I said, anybody who wants to argue with me, I get it. Black Christmas, I don't consider, because I don't think you have enough of the holiday in there to actually really feel like a Christmas movie.
Agreed.
Compared
I
to
think
just
the
being
only
a
Christmas
movie.
thing was like a tree.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
That's why I had to establish what's a Christmas movie and what's something that's set at Christmas. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts, man.
I think that's a good list, man. I like it. So, in conclusion, there are a lot of great Christmas horror movies. If you're looking for a horror movie, just to have fun. I think me personally, I think that some things in Christmas kind of need to remain sacred. I think that life is too short and life is too depressing, especially nowadays, especially since COVID times. Things are too depressing to be watching, negative, hopeless,
nihilistic bleakness.
yeah, during Christmas time. So try to watch, just a suggestion, it's your own life. Try to watch something a little bit more fun, a little bit more hopeful. If there's monsters in it, kind of like Nightmare Before Christmas, keep that element, keep it gravely amusing, but try to have some fun and try to raise your spirits as much as possible. Take a drive, go see some lights, just try to get in that Christmas spirit and try to find some joy this holiday.
I have an employee or a coworker, an employee who she hates Christmas, and listen to her talk. It's because I think growing up, I understand where she's coming from. It was rough, but so many people get caught up in all the commercialism and lose the spirit of just the time and the joy, and actually find pleasure and happiness in the things. They get so wrapped up in almost like it's a checklist. Like, oh, I have to do this. I have to do this. Or this is that they lose something. But so yeah, just find something that makes you happy.
And absolutely, Tyler. And if this is a type of season that, maybe you don't have much family, maybe you don't have many friends, I encourage you to go out of your comfort zone, maybe play a game online, and see if there's some community there, or people you can talk to. Maybe find a Discord, maybe find a group on Facebook, just someone to talk to. I'm sure there's other people that don't have a lot of people to hang out with during Christmas, and maybe they're feeling sad too. Reach out, find somebody. If you need someone to talk to, find someone to talk to.
Hit up our socials. I tell people all the time, like, if you hit up your Krypton Report on social media, you want to have a conversation, I'm probably more than likely going to talk with you.
If you find me on social media, I'm definitely going to talk to you, because I get bored during the day as I work from home. so I lost my father 8 years ago at this time, and I know what it's like, and I'm not very close with my immediate family. So believe me, I know what it's like. So, reach out to Tyler if you're, if you're a parent and trying to deal with the stresses of Christmas. I'm sure Tyler will definitely be one to talk to. If and I'm definitely here for you as well. So reach out to us on social media, Krypton Report on everything, and Gravely Music on everything. And I hope you guys just have a Merry Christmas. I hope you had a good Friday the 13th, watching some horror stuff, and keep it real. And I'm going to try to get some episode in before Christmas. Have some ideas for that. We'll see what happens. But we'll definitely have some more episodes before the end of the year, before we take a little break for a while. So thank you, listeners, for joining us. Thank you, Tyler. And have a good night, guys.